Many of us have those stubborn pounds that seem impossible to lose, no matter how good we eat or how hard we work out. My solution is PlushCare. PlushCare is a leading telehealth provider with doctors who are there for you day and night to partner with you in your weight loss journey. They can prescribe FDA-approved weight loss medications like Wegovy and Zepbound for those who qualify. Plus, they accept most insurance plans. To get started, visit plushcare.com/weightloss. That's plushcare.com/weightloss.
My brand new book, Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth, is now available. So much more than a book, this is a guide that allows me to hold your hand through your birth preparation journey. With over a decade of experience and knowledge packed in to ensure you really are empowered in the way you deserve to achieve a positive birth, regardless of the twists and turns that crop up. Make sure that you get your hands on Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth book now and are empowered to have the birth experience that you deserve. Welcome to Midwife Pip Podcast Bitesize, your weekly dose of all things pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and women's health, to help support you towards a better journey. These episodes are snapshots from previous episodes on the podcast to make sure you have all those golden nuggets of information that you need. And remember, if you're feeling like you would benefit from working with me and having more one-to-one support on your journey, drop me a message at midwife_pip on Instagram so we can chat about how I support women at this time in their lives and may be able to help you too.
We often neglect our pelvic floor until we are pregnant or develop symptoms that lead us to focus on our pelvic floor health. But actually, we should all be considering our pelvic floor as an integral part of our wellness. I'm so excited that Clare Bourne, a specialist pelvic health physiotherapist, is joining us today to talk us through why so many of us are doing our pelvic floor exercises incorrectly, some common symptoms, and what we should be doing to improve our overall pelvic floor function. Clare has been a pelvic health physiotherapist for 7 years and now works for Six Physio in London. She's a mum of 2, currently on maternity leave, and is really passionate about providing evidence-based information to mums during pregnancy and in the postpartum period. Clare mirrors the Pregnancy Wellness podcast ethos in that no woman should feel alone or experience symptoms without support. So I'm immensely grateful that she is with us today, sharing her knowledge and expertise.
Essentially, where the pelvic floor is, it's exactly where it states it is. It's almost, for us, the simplest muscle to understand because it states where it is. It is in the floor of the pelvis. So the pelvis being made up of different bones, which is sort of like a circular structure. And at the bottom, the pelvic outlet is basically a hole, and the pelvic floor makes the floor of that, the base of that. It's made up of lots of different little muscles that all have great names like bulbospongiosis, ischiocavenosis, and all really funny names. But essentially, we just call it the pelvic floor. And together, they have such an important role. So obviously, a lot of the time we think about it as like, okay, it stops you wetting yourself on the trampoline or things like that. Or, but really, if you think about motherhood, so it's keeping, it essentially supports the weight of your baby and obviously all your organs and everything else during that time. It does keep us continence, but of wind and bowels, so of poo and of wee, so really important. It provides sexual pleasure. It actually works with other muscles around the pelvis and the spine to give stability. So really, really important roles, but it can be just so on because we can't visualize it. And I always recommend to women, like, Google pelvic floor and actually see where it is, because I think actually once you can visualize a muscle, it's very easy with a bicep, isn't it? Because you can actually see your bicep. If you can actually visualize where those muscles are, it can just make it so much easier. And it also makes you realize, okay, I know why those muscles are important during motherhood and, well, for life, because of where they are and what their role is.
Look, Bumble knows you're exhausted by dating. All the must not take yourself too seriously and 6'1" since that matters. And what do I even say other than, hey? Well, that's why they're introducing an all-new Bumble, with exciting features to make compatibility easier, starting the chat better, and dating safer. They've changed, so you don't have to. Download the new Bumble now.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And it's such a shame we can't see them. It'd be so much easier if we could see them. If our sort of pelvises were transparent, it would it would be really helpful. Yeah. So we all know that we should be doing our pelvic floor exercises, Claire. And I think I probably speak for many women when I confess that I don't do them regularly, and I'm very aware that I don't do them enough.
Yeah.
So how should we actually be doing them? Because like you say, when you can't see the muscle, I know how to contract my bicep, but when you can't see them, it is more tricky.
Absolutely. So the best cue that we kind of currently understand from research is that most women find, if you think about holding in wind, so focusing the contraction around the back passage, that can often bring the best contraction of the pelvic floor. Now, obviously, not everyone fits that model, but we often start with that advice because ultimately that's what most women find it should be helpful. And a lot of the musculature actually sits around the back passage. So a lot of the cues used to be think about stopping a wee or stop doing a wee on the toilet. Now we've moved away from that, because actually if we do it on the toilet when we're doing a wee and we kind of stop the flow constantly, it can actually lead to the bladder not emptying properly, which could then lead to like urine infections. So it's a lovely test. And actually, if you're not sure how to do your pelvic floor, what it should feel like, or if yours is doing its job, you can always try and stop a wee mid-flow. However, don't routinely do your pelvic floor there, as probably used to be advised in, I'd say, sort of mothers' generations and grandmothers' generations. So what we're recommending at the minute is, think about holding wind and letting go. Now, obviously that sounds pretty simple, but actually, unless you can really get in tune with that, it can still be quite challenging. And a lot of things that we would often do is sort of use our bottom muscles, use our tummy muscles, use our leg muscles, because I think the thing is, we think it should be this massive contraction, because again, if you think about like an arm, you're like, oh yeah, that feels like a really big movement, I can generate loads of power with it, and that's what we're kind of aiming for. But often with the pelvic floor, less is more. So just actually, when women come to me in clinic and I'm like, no, you're doing it, they're like, that's it. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's all you've got to do. Hold the wind and then let it go. And making sure that the let go is happening. Because actually sometimes we can be, and often we're just like, do your pelvic floor squeezes. And so women are like, right, I've just got to squeeze. And then we've kind of moved away from actually remembering that muscles, in order to be healthy, also need to let go. So there's no point of just focusing on squeeze. You need to have a big squeeze and a big let go. So that's how we should be doing them. It always sounds simple. We do think around 50% of women do them wrong, unfortunately, because for all the matters that we've sort of discussed. But I always say, other things that you can do at home to sort of check is you can look for yourself. So I always say this doesn't always come naturally to us, but getting a mirror and having a look at your vulva, and what you should see is the back passage should basically tighten and move away from the mirror and lift a bit. And you also sort of see the vaginal entrance sort of closing as well. So have a little look at that. Some women might put their finger just inside the vagina, and you should sort of feel a tightening, a lift of the pelvic floor happening. So those are options that you can try at home. Obviously, if you're really, really struggling and you're symptomatic, that is where a pelvic floor physio does come in, because we obviously can check it for you. But yeah, that's kind of how we recommend it at home.
Amazing. And I suppose, is it sort of similar to that if we're working another muscle, we might do kind of a certain amount of repetitions? Is that kind of the same kind of setup with our pelvic floor?
I hope you found that bite-sized episode really insightful. To listen to it in full, go to the description and visit that episode on whatever platform you're listening on. One last thing before you go. As a listener, really help make this podcast successful. I would appreciate if you could subscribe and leave a quick review. Something so little means so much to me and will help so many women's lives.
Hi, my name is Kay Adams, and to be honest, I'm not so good with the ageing process, so I enlisted my old chum, the filter-free Cara McKenzie, to advise.
Could you imagine being a porn star? The room would need to be really hot for me to strip off.
To be honest, she's not much help, but she is rather amusing. And along with some great guests, Jo Brand, Andy Oliver, Anton Dubeck, Ruth Langsford and Craig Revel-Horwood, darling, we are learning how to be 60. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.